The rain had been falling for 2 days straight, the kind of Lagos rain that didn't knock politely before entering your life. It slammed against glass, soaked through concrete, and crept into your bones with a chill that felt emotional as much as physical. From where I sat in the top-floor office of Accolade Holdings, I could see the city blurred into streaks of silver and gray. Cars crawled like ants below. People hurried under umbrellas, chasing lives that still made sense to them. Mine hadn't made sense in 2 years. I sat across from my husband, Michael Accolade, the billionaire everyone called the Cold One. The name wasn't cruel gossip. It was accurate. His face was calm, carved from discipline. His eyes were dark and unreadable. His navy blue suit looked like it had never known a wrinkle or an emotion. He didn't look at me. His pen moved across paper with quiet authority, signing documents, page after page, as though I weren't sitting there, as though I wasn't his wife, as though my presence didn't alter the oxygen in the room. The office was massive, all glass walls and minimalist furniture, designed to intimidate the world into obedience. It had once intimidated me too. Now it just felt empty. Too clean. Too perfect. Too cold. 2 years of marriage. 2 years of being Mrs. Accolade. 2 years of sleeping in a king-size bed that felt like a polite border agreement between strangers. We hadn't spoken more than 5 sentences in months. Not arguments. Not conversations. Just logistics. Dinner is at 7. I'll be late. We have a family dinner on Sunday. I'll see if my schedule allows. I watched his hand sign another page. The soft scratch of pen on paper sounded louder than thunder in my chest. I didn't know why I was here. He had asked me to come, yes, but now that I was here, he treated me like a piece of furniture that had wandered into the wrong room. My fingers tightened around the edge of the leather chair. I hadn't planned to speak. I had promised myself I wouldn't. But something in me was tired of being invisible in my own marriage. "You don't even notice I've stopped wearing my ring," I whispered. I wasn't even sure he heard me at first. My voice sounded small, fragile, like it might break if I raised it. The rain outside roared louder, as if mocking my attempt at bravery. His pen paused. Not dramatically. Just paused. Then he continued signing. "You stopped wearing your ring long before I stopped noticing," he said without looking up. The words hit me like a slap I didn't see coming. My breath left my lungs in a sharp, humiliating rush. I felt heat crawl up my neck, into my face, into my eyes. For a moment, I couldn't move. Couldn't blink. Couldn't breathe properly. So he had noticed. He had noticed and still said nothing. I laughed, but it came out wrong, thin and bitter. "So you noticed and still didn't care?" He finally looked up then. Just briefly. But in that second, I saw something flicker behind his eyes. Not anger. Not indifference. Something like pain. Or maybe I imagined it because I needed it to be there. "Caring doesn't change facts," he said. "You've been gone from this marriage longer than your ring has." I stood up so fast the chair scraped loudly against the floor. My heart was pounding, not in love, not in fear, but in a wild mixture of both. "I've been gone," I repeated. "You married me for a business alliance, Michael. You put me in a mansion like a decorative object. You never asked what I wanted. You never asked if I was okay. And now you're telling me I left first." He closed the file in front of him. Slowly. Deliberately. "I gave you everything," he said. "Freedom. Money. Status. You gave me silence," I shot back. "You gave me walls. You gave me loneliness in a house so big my footsteps echoed back at me like reminders that I didn't belong." The rain thundered harder, like the sky itself was arguing with us. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't calm. It was sharp, brittle, filled with all the things we had refused to say for 2 years. "I didn't ask for this life," I said softly. "I didn't ask for a billionaire husband who treats me like a contract clause." "You agreed to the marriage," he replied. "I was 22, I snapped. My parents were desperate. Your family was powerful. Everyone told me it would grow into love. Everyone lied." His jaw tightened. He stood up, towering, his presence suddenly heavy in the room. "Do you think I wanted this either?" he asked. "Do you think I don't know what people say about me? That I'm cold. That I'm heartless. That I don't feel. Then prove them wrong, I said, my voice shaking. Just once. He looked away. That hurt more than any insult he could have thrown at me. I grabbed my handbag. My hands were trembling now, not from fear, but from the realization that this was it. This was the moment my marriage officially died, not in court papers or dramatic screaming, but in a quiet office with rain on the windows and two people who no longer knew how to reach each other. I'm done, I said. I can't keep begging to exist in your life. I walked out of the office before he could respond. My heels clicked against the polished floor, too loud, too fast, like they were chasing me out of my own story. The elevator ride down felt endless. My reflection in the mirrored walls looked like a stranger. My eyes were red. My lips were pressed into a line so tight it hurt. That night, I packed a single suitcase. Not because I didn't own more. I had a walk-in closet bigger than my childhood bedroom. But because I didn't want to take anything that belonged to the version of me that had died in that house. I folded clothes with mechanical movements. Dresses I had worn to charity galas where Michael barely touched my hand. Shoes I had worn to dinners where people envied my life without knowing it was hollow. When I zipped the suitcase shut, my chest felt light and heavy at the same time. Light with relief. Heavy with grief. I stood in the bedroom for a moment, staring at the untouched side of the bed. His side. Always neat. Always cold. I whispered to the empty room. I walked out. The elevator doors were about to close when I heard his voice. Tenny, don't leave. My heart stuttered. For a split second, my entire body wanted to turn around. Wanted to run back into his arms. Wanted to believe that those 3 words meant everything I had been starving to hear for 2 years. But the doors closed. And I let them. Both. The serviced apartment in Ikoyi smelled like fresh paint and loneliness. Everything was white, walls, curtains, tiles, like a blank page I didn't know how to write on yet. The silence there wasn't the sharp, accusing kind I had lived with in Michael's mansion. This one was softer, almost kind. It didn't judge me for breathing too loudly or existing too much. The first night, I sat on the edge of the unfamiliar bed with my suitcase still closed beside me. I didn't unpack. I didn't cry either. I just stared at the opposite wall and tried to understand how my life had split in 2 without making a sound. I told myself I was free. I told myself this was peace. But freedom still ached like a fresh wound. My phone buzzed once, then twice, then stopped. I didn't check it. I knew who it would be from. I wasn't ready to hear anything that sounded like an apology or worse, like silence dressed up as concern. Morning came gently. The curtains glowed with soft sunlight, and for a brief, cruel second, I forgot where I was. I reached to the other side of the bed out of habit, then froze when my hand touched nothing but cold sheets. Reality settled into my bones. I laughed, a dry, humorless sound. Good morning, Tenny. You finally did it. I made coffee in the tiny kitchen. It tasted terrible, but I drank it anyway. It felt like a small punishment I deserved for leaving a life people would kill for. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was my mother. Tenny, she said immediately, her voice heavy with worry. Where are you? I'm fine, Mama. You left your husband's house in the middle of the night. Do you know what people are already saying? I don't care what they're saying. There was a pause. Are you coming back? I closed my eyes. No, she sighed. You always had a stubborn heart. And you always taught me not to die quietly, I replied. She didn't argue after that. She just said, come and see me when you're ready. I hung up and stared at the phone like it had betrayed me. By noon, I had unpacked. By evening, I had ordered food. By night, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't miserable. I missed Michael. God, I missed him in ways that made no sense. I missed his presence, his quiet authority, the way he smelled like expensive cologne and responsibility. I missed the idea of him more than the reality. But I wasn't breaking. And that scared me more than any heartbreak. 3 days later, I went back to work. Not at Accolade Holdings. I had resigned months ago after one too many whispers about how I only had my job because I was the boss's wife. I now worked at a small interior design firm run by a woman who didn't care who my husband was. "Welcome back, Tenny," my boss, Laura, said with a grin. "You look lighter." "I feel lighter," I said, surprised by how true it was. At lunch, my coworkers talked about men, money, and weekend plans. For the first time in years, nobody asked me about Michael. Nobody treated me like a walking luxury brand. I laughed so hard at one point that I startled myself. That night, the rain returned. It drummed against the windows of my apartment, slow and steady, like a familiar voice calling my name. My chest tightened in that stupid, traitorous way. I curled up on the couch and hugged a pillow to my stomach. I told myself not to think of him. I failed. Meanwhile, in the mansion I had left behind, Michael didn't sleep. I know this because later, the staff told me everything, their voices full of quiet shock. They said he stopped going to the office. The same man who lived for boardrooms and deadlines now sat at the dining table with untouched meals, staring into nothing. They said he wandered into our bedroom at night and stood there motionless, like he was afraid the walls would accuse him. The bed, they said, looked wrong without me. His mother came to see him 4 days after I left. "You finally chased her away," she said bluntly, sitting across from him in the living room. "She left on her own," he replied. She scoffed. "Don't insult my intelligence. You built an empire, Michael. But your wife was never part of it." He rubbed his temples. "Because she never wanted to be." His mother leaned forward. "Because you never let her be." He didn't answer. That silence told her everything. "She loved you," his mother continued, "in ways you didn't deserve." He laughed bitterly. "She barely spoke to me for months." "Because you taught her it was useless," she snapped. "You trained her to be quiet in her own marriage." After she left, he sat alone in the massive living room, surrounded by furniture that cost more than some people's houses. None of it mattered. None of it spoke back to him. He walked into our bedroom and opened my closet. Half of it was empty. The side that belonged to me looked like it had been robbed of color. He touched one of my dresses, his fingers lingering like they were trying to memorize its softness. "She'll come back," he muttered to himself. But his voice sounded unsure. Back in Ikoyi, my life started to grow roots. I made friends with the security guard downstairs. His name was Kunnel, and he always greeted me with, "Madam, your smile is back today." I started jogging in the mornings. I joined a yoga class. I bought plants for my apartment, even though I had never been good at keeping anything alive. I told myself this was my new beginning. And then Michael sent me flowers. A massive bouquet of white lilies arrived at my office. The card had only 3 words. "I am sorry." My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped it. My coworkers gathered around me like it was a movie scene. "Is that from your husband?" Laura asked quietly. "Yes." "Do you love him?" I opened my mouth to answer and nothing came out. That silence was my real answer. I didn't respond to the flowers. The next day, he sent another bouquet. Then another. Then he sent a message. "Michael, can we talk?" I stared at the screen for a long time. Me, there's nothing to talk about. Michael, there's everything to talk about. Me, you had 2 years. Michael, I didn't know how. Me, that didn't stop you from knowing how to ignore me. I turned my phone off after that. At night, alone in my apartment, I sometimes whispered his name like a prayer I didn't believe in anymore. I hated that part of myself. I hated that, even in freedom, my heart still knew his address. The city kept moving. My life kept filling with new routines. My laughter came easier. My eyes looked brighter. But every time the rain fell, my chest tightened. And somewhere in a mansion too big for one lonely man, Michael sat in the silence I had left behind, finally understanding what it felt like to be invisible. The charity gala invitation sat on my kitchen counter for 3 days before I touched it. Thick cream paper. Gold lettering. The kind of envelope that whispered luxury even before you opened it. Akinlaid Foundation Annual Benefit Dinner. Michael's name glared at me from the top like a challenge. I told myself I wasn't going. I told myself I didn't need to walk back into a room full of people who would stare at me like a headline, Billionaire's wife returns alone. But something inside me wanted to go. Not for him. For me. I wanted to prove I could exist in his world without shrinking. On the night of the gala, I stood in front of my mirror longer than necessary. My hands hovered over dresses I hadn't worn in months. Old versions of me stared back from sequins and silk. Then I chose something new. An emerald green gown that hugged my waist and fell softly down my body. Simple. Elegant. Alive. I left my hair in loose waves and kept my makeup light. I wanted to look like myself, not Mrs. Accolade. When I arrived, the ballroom glittered with chandeliers and quiet wealth. Cameras flashed. Voices murmured. The air smelled like perfume and ambition. The moment I stepped inside, heads turned. I felt it in my bones. People whispered, "She's here. They're not together anymore, right? She looks different." I held my head high and walked in like I belonged, because I did. And then I saw him. Michael stood near the stage, tall, immaculate in a black tuxedo. He was talking to board members, his face composed, his posture perfect. But his eyes were restless. When they landed on me, the world slowed. Just for a second. His breath hitched. I saw it. He tried to hide it. Failed. He excused himself from the group and watched me cross the room like he wasn't sure if I was real. I ignored him and went straight to the bar. My hands were shaking. "White wine," I told the bartender. "You look stunning," a voice said behind me. I turned to see a young executive I vaguely recognized. Tall. Handsome. Confident. "Thank you," I replied politely. "I'm Daniel," he said, offering his hand. "Tenny." "I know," he smiled. "Everyone knows." I laughed softly. Lucky me. We talked. About work. About Lagos traffic. About meaningless things that didn't hurt. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then I felt it. The shift in the air. The tension. I glanced up and saw Michael watching us. His jaw was tight. His eyes dark. Not angry. Not jealous. Regretful. Daniel leaned closer. "Would you like to dance?" Before I could answer, Michael appeared beside us like a storm contained in a suit. "Tenny," he said quietly. "Michael." Daniel looked between us, suddenly uncomfortable. Excuse you." Michael waited until he left. Then he spoke, his voice low. "You look different." "Free," I replied. He nodded slowly. "Free enough to forget me?" I met his eyes. "You made it easy." That one hurt him. I saw it land. He deserved it. I hated that I cared. "I'm glad you came," he said. "I came for the cause, not for you." He didn't argue. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "Tenny, don't decide yet. Read this first." "What is it?" "A letter." I hesitated, then took it. "You couldn't say whatever it is to my face?" "I'm not good with faces," he said quietly. I almost smiled. Almost. I walked away from him before my heart could betray me again. I found a quiet corner and opened the envelope. The letter was handwritten. His handwriting. Careful. Controlled. Emotional in a way his voice never was. I built walls to protect my empire and forgot that love needed windows. I thought distance meant control. I thought silence meant strength. I was wrong. I watched you leave and realized I had been living with a stranger because I refused to know my own wife. I don't know how to undo 2 years of damage. I only know I want to try. If you still have even a small piece of love left for me, don't close the door yet. My vision blurred. Tears slipped down my cheeks before I could stop them. For the first time, I saw him. Not the billionaire. Not the cold man. The broken husband who didn't know how to love without hiding. I folded the letter carefully and pressed it to my chest. When I looked up, he was standing a few feet away, watching me like he was waiting for a verdict. "I don't have an answer," I said honestly. "I'm not asking for one," he replied. We stood there, two people suspended between what we were and what we could be. The music swelled. The crowd moved. Life continued. And for the first time in months, we were standing in the same space without hatred in the air. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was a beginning. 3 nights after the gala, I woke up to my phone screaming on my bedside table. Not vibrating. Screaming. The kind of sound that tells your body something is wrong before your mind can catch up. I grabbed it, half asleep. Lara's name flashed on the screen. "Hello." My voice was thick with sleep. "Tenny," she said, breathless. "Turn on the news. Now." My heart dropped into my stomach. I sat up and switched on the TV. The screen filled with flames, smoke, chaos. A familiar logo burned into the corner of the footage. Accolade Manufacturing Plant, Acadia. My breath stopped. The reporter's voice trembled with urgency. "A massive fire has broken out at one of Accolade Holdings' factories. Multiple workers are reportedly trapped inside. Emergency services are on site. The CEO, Michael Accolade, is said to be present." I didn't hear the rest. My body moved before my brain made any decisions. I was out of bed, pulling on jeans, grabbing my keys, my heart slamming against my ribs like it was trying to escape. I didn't think. I didn't debate. I didn't remind myself that we were separated. I drove like a madwoman through near-empty streets, the sky still dark, the city eerily quiet except for sirens in the distance. The closer I got, the thicker the smoke became. By the time I reached the site, chaos ruled everything. Fire trucks. Police tape. Crowds of workers' families crying and praying. The air was thick with heat and fear. I jumped out of my car and pushed through the crowd. "Madam, you can't go past here," a policeman shouted. "My husband is inside," I yelled. He hesitated, then waved me through. I saw him. Michael stood near the entrance of the factory, his suit gone, his white shirt stained with soot and sweat. His hair was disheveled. His face was dark with smoke. He was shouting orders, arguing with firefighters, refusing to move away from the danger zone. "There are still people in there," he barked. "You can't stop now." "Sir, the structure is unstable," a firefighter yelled back. "I don't care." I ran to him. "Michael." He turned. The relief on his face hit me like a punch to the chest. "What are you doing here?" he demanded. "What are you doing here?" I shot back. "You're going to die trying to save everyone." "At least I'll die trying to be better," he said hoarsely. The building groaned. Flames licked at the metal beams. A scream came from inside. Without thinking, he moved toward the entrance. I grabbed his arm. "Don't." He looked at me, eyes blazing. "They're still inside." "So are you," I cried. "And I'm not losing you like this." For a second, he wavered. Then 2 firefighters rushed past us. "Last group is coming out," one shouted. We both watched, holding our breath, as 3 workers stumbled out, coughing, burned, alive. Relief crashed through me so hard my knees nearly gave out. Michael sagged against a wall, his strength finally gone. He slid down to the ground, coughing violently. I dropped beside him, my hands shaking as I held his face. "You idiot," I sobbed. "Do you have any idea what you almost did to me?" "I couldn't leave them," he rasped. "I know," I whispered. "That's why I came." Sirens wailed. Cameras flashed. But in that moment, it was just us. He started to cry. Not silently. Not neatly. He broke. "I thought I lost you," he choked. "I thought I had already lost everything." I pressed my forehead to his. "You're not allowed to die. Not now. Not when you're finally learning how to live." He laughed weakly through tears. We stayed like that for a long time, holding each other while the fire died behind us. That night, in a hospital waiting room that smelled like antiseptic and fear, we sat side by side. He had minor smoke inhalation. Nothing serious. But it felt serious to me. "I thought you hated me," he said quietly. "I thought you didn't care if I lived or died," I replied. He winced. "I care. I just never knew how to show it without losing control." "You already lost control," I said. "You just didn't notice." He nodded. For the first time in 2 years, we cried together. Not out of anger. Not out of pride. Out of raw, human truth. The cold marriage didn't melt in a dramatic kiss or a movie speech. It melted in smoke, sweat, fear, and 2 people finally choosing to be honest. Months passed, not in dramatic leaps, but in slow, careful steps that felt like learning how to walk again after a long illness. I didn't move back into the mansion immediately. We both agreed not to rush anything. The fire had changed something in Michael, yes, but I wasn't willing to gamble my healing on promises alone. So we started small. He called me every morning. Not to control. Not to check my location. Just to say, "Good morning, Tenny. I hope your day is kind to you." The first time he said that, I held the phone in silence for a full 10 seconds. "Are you okay?" he asked nervously. I've never heard you wish me kindness before," I admitted. "I've never wished it out loud before," he said. We had coffee dates in neutral places. Quiet cafes. Beachside restaurants. Bookstores. Places where we were just two people, not a billionaire and his estranged wife. He listened more than he spoke. When he did speak, he chose his words like they mattered. Because now they did. "I didn't know you loved photography," he said one afternoon as we walked along the Lekki beach. "I stopped telling you things when you stopped listening," I replied. He nodded. I deserved that. The first time he reached for my hand again, his fingers trembled. "Is this okay?" he asked softly. I looked at his hand, then at his eyes. "Yes," I said. It wasn't fireworks. It was gentler than that. But it felt more real than anything we had ever had. Eventually, I moved back into the mansion. Not as a defeated wife returning to wealth, but as a woman returning by choice. The house felt different. Warmer. Lived in. Michael worked from home more often now. He cooked badly but insisted on trying. He laughed at himself when he burned rice. He apologized when he forgot things. He asked me how my day was and waited for the answer. We ate dinner together. Not in silence. Not with phones. Not with staff hovering. Just us. One night, we sat across from each other at the dining table. Candlelight danced between us. The city lights outside shimmered like forgiveness. He was staring at me. "What?" I teased. "I'm just remembering how it feels to want something real," he said. My breath caught. He reached for my hand slowly, carefully, like he was afraid I might disappear. "I want you," he said. Not possessively. Not arrogantly. Not as my wife. As my choice. My voice shook. "You already lost me once." "I know," he said. "I won't survive losing you again." The desire between us wasn't just physical. It was emotional. It was the hunger to finally be seen. To finally be known. That night, when he kissed me again for the first time in years, it wasn't cold or rushed or empty. It was soft. It was reverent. It was desperate in the way only second chances are. And for the first time since our wedding day, I felt wanted. Not as a trophy. Not as a contract. But as a woman. The billionaire's desire didn't awaken in lust. It awakened in vulnerability. In humility. In love.